Is the new look Big Ten Conference a good thing or a bad thing for the Iowa Hawkeye football program? We dissect. Plus, Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com stops by to talk some football and some basketball. All today, Locked On Hawkeye.
You are Locked On Hawkeyes, your daily podcast on the Iowa Hawkeyes. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
I'm Trent Condon, and this is the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. Thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. We're available wherever you find podcasts, and you can also watch us on YouTube. While you're there, make sure you hit us up with the subscribe, and if you're listening on audio, 5-star reviews. Greatly appreciate each and every one of you for helping us out. Today's episode is brought to you by Gametime. Download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. So as we put a bow on the 4th of July, hope everybody's having a great Friday and getting ready for, maybe it is a 4-day weekend for you already. We're here talking Hawkeyes, though. Maybe you got the earbuds in, you're listening as you're mowing the lawn, you're out and about doing some family activities. And I want to talk some football today. And an interesting article that came in from Stewart Mandel from The Athletic talking about the new looks of these conferences at the Power 4 structure and what they mean football only. And this is a conversation about football. This is not about finances. This is not about where obviously Iowa and the Big Ten as a whole is in an incredible position compared to many of their brethren, including the one here in the state in the Big 12 with Iowa State. It's not a financial situation. It's not about that. It's just strictly between the lines. When you're talking about this football program and you're talking about who the coach is, you're not talking about all those kind of things. It's just a snapshot of what this looks like in the Big Ten and other conferences as well, he wrote about. But we're obviously concentrating on Iowa and the Big Ten here and where it kind of fits in this new look. So going back with the decision of the Big Ten for including USC and UCLA, when the invitations were given, there was a lot of concerns about travel and those kind of things. How's this going to work? Then a little bit later on, you also add Oregon and Washington, creating that West Coast flank to the Big Ten. Had made travel, certainly for those schools, a little bit easier. You know, you're going to be playing those teams at a year in, year out basis, coupled with what it does for the non-revenue sports and the like. See how that component to it. But for the football field, what does this mean? And at the time, I said for Iowa football, this is not a good thing. And people right away jump to, well, of course, because the Big Ten West is going away. And certainly that's a component. Look, the division of the conference was bad. There's no two ways about it. Iowa took advantage of that, and I would argue they should have taken even more advantage of what they did over the last 7-8 years inside of this division because they were the power program. And you look at win totals and you look at the like, and Wisconsin ended up with the most championship game appearances. We know the last 2 championship appearances didn't go very well, but in the three times that Iowa made it, 2 blowouts against Michigan and then the heartbreaker in 2015 against Michigan State, you're left wondering, what it's going to be going forward because divisions are going away. Now, there's some people out there that will try to lead you to believe, including Stewart Mandel, because I heard him say this on his podcast earlier this week, that he doesn't think Iowa's ever going to make a Big Ten championship game again. Now, any is a long time. In fact, I could argue that this year they have a great opportunity. And as we've talked about here, maybe their best opportunity in the foreseeable future comes right here in this season. It's short-sighted, but it shouldn't come as a surprise. Look, Stewart Mandel, I've had him on my radio show. He's fine. He's also an Iowa hater. He is. He hates Kirk Ferentz. He hates the Iowa football program. When he was a geeky student at Northwestern, he got all fired up because I guess some people were mean to him or something like that. And he's always had a problem with Iowa. So we have to start there. And you hear that come. Now, luckily, if you're a listener of that podcast, Bruce Feldman, who is his co-host, very much evens that out, has a lot of respect for the Iowa program, and actually can see the forest through the trees and isn't butthurt like Mandela is sometimes with Iowa and what happened to him 30 years ago. That aside. So we put that caveat in there. But if you're watching on YouTube, I got the look at the way that he ranks the teams 1 through 18 and the scoring system that he came up to. So the scoring system basically shows you what teams get the, I guess, best bump out of the new structure of the Big Ten, going from 14 to 18 divisions going away. He has Ohio State at the top, getting 4 points in the system. Michigan and Penn State, they're tied for second. Michigan State, Oregon next on the list, followed up by Maryland, Rutgers. I think the reason for both of them is you're not playing in the Big Ten East anymore, and those yearly matchups for the Terrapins and for the Scarlet Knights against Ohio State, Michigan, Penn State every single year. And the same thing to a certain extent for Indiana, though he has that -2 in this scale. But at the bottom of the list, you'll see the Iowa Hawkeyes. The Iowa Hawkeyes are the team, along with UCLA, that he believes the new current structure of the Big Ten is the worst for in all the conference. This is what Mandel said when he got to Iowa. The Hawkeyes have made a living out of grinding out mediocre Big Ten West foes while losing 42-3 to Michigan and 54-10 to Ohio State. And an 18-team league with no more unbalanced divisions and 3 incoming top 25 recruiting schools, Iowa could be in for a reckoning. Again, it's short-sighted. It's not realistic. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Is it worse for Iowa? There's no doubt about it. This is absolutely worse for Iowa as it pertains to their structure inside the Big Ten and what it's going to look like for them going forward. I'm not going to argue that. But the worst in the league, this is the worst. Iowa is impacted the most by the change. I can't get there. The program's not going away. The infrastructure is solid. There's been 2 coaches now going on 45 years. To think that all of a sudden this new look Big Ten is going to be a detriment at that level compared to the rest of your conference brethren, that it's the worst for Iowa? Come on, Stewart Mandel. It's just not right. It is a swing and a miss. Is it worse? Sure. Should they be maybe towards the bottom of the pack? I would agree with that. But to put them at the bottom of the list, I think is incredibly short-sighted by Stewart Mandel. We continue here, Locked On Hawkeyes. We got more Hawkeye talk on your way. A new pitching coach for Iowa baseball, plus plenty of football and basketball conversation coming up with Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com. We'll do that as we continue Locked On Hawkeyes. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and more. Whether into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. And we're joined now by Tom Kakert from HawkeyeReport.com. Well, Tom, before we dig in a little bit deeper into kind of football, basketball, all those recruiting angles, I know Kyle Huseman does your guys' work on the baseball beat. What can you tell us about the new pitching coach for Iowa baseball?
Yeah, kind of travel a little bit. Didn't spend Sean Kenny didn't spend a lot of time at Houston, but comes with a good reputation. You know, for whatever reason, the Sean McGrath marriage just didn't work, and I think Rick and Sean kind of figured that out at the end of the year, that they were both probably better off just parting company and moving on from each other. And so they've got a good setup now with he's brought at least a couple players with him from Houston. So we'll see how it goes. I think the big decision is going to be, and we know Brody Breck's gone. We believe Marcus Morgan's gone. But what happens with Obermueller, and is he going to stay in the draft? Because I think he's done pretty well in those camps that they're having to let the MLB people get a look at him. So we'll see what happens with him. If he's in, then that's a whole new rotation for Iowa next year.
When is the draft? It's soon, right?
Yeah, it's I think in a week maybe. I think it's right around the All-Star break.
I think it is too, if memory serves. We shall see. We'll know before long, right?
July 14th, Sunday, July 14th through Tuesday.
And that
the 16th.
is the All-Star break weekend after that. So interesting. Ready for football, GC? Let's go. Cade McNamara. Tom, I can't find, and I get it. If there is something wrong there, they're not going to, there's not going to be breaking news. They're not going to let that cat out of the proverbial bag. But boy, oh boy, it sure seems like he's right where everybody thinks he should be, maybe ahead of schedule even. Glowing reports on Cade McNamara, and obviously, it's so critical to this team's success that he's on the field for the entire season. And so far, You're hearing nothing but good reports. Yeah,
and the thing that told me that he's all systems go is he played in that softball game out of Southeast.
Yes, yep.
And, if there was any question about his health, he wouldn't have been out there. and they would have kept him off the field and not playing in a charity softball game. For all due respect to the Make-A-Wish and everything, and a great cause, but you're not going to put your starting quarterback out there if you didn't feel like he was going to be if he wasn't healthy enough to do it. So yeah, I think it's all systems go for him, and I'm assuming he's going to be the starting quarterback when Illinois State arrives on campus.
Tom, we know your expectations are pretty big. I think mine are pretty big. Yeah. I think Ken's are pretty big. And it feels like a lot of the local media is higher on this team than maybe some past seasons. But it's not just local. You're seeing regional. You're even seeing a lot of national writers now jumping on. Iowa can be a playoff team. What now, as we sit here in July, remains your biggest concern? The one area that says this thing not can just go awry and they finish 7-5, 8-4, but the wheels completely would fall off. What concerns you most in order for that to happen?
Probably a couple things. I think they've got to figure something out in the pass game because it was just so anemic the last 2 years. Just was. And there's no two ways about it. And then maybe your most dynamic pass catcher is going to be gone for the first game at least, maybe longer. We don't know what, Kirk Ferentz hasn't said a peep about Caleb Brown. All we know is that he's probably in the doghouse. So we don't know what's happening with him, but I think that's a big thing. I'm still, and I know they always just seem to churn it out, but I'm still, but that defensive line just can't sustain any injuries this year because it's 3 deep at D tackle. It's 3 deep at D end. And then there's, I don't know that Kelvin Bell trusts anything beyond Pittman and beyond Max Llewellyn and the starters. And they've got to develop some more depth there because, if a Y.A. Black goes down or an Aaron Graves goes down, they're in trouble.
Yeah.
They just are.
Yep.
And so, they're going to have to figure that out. Somebody's got to emerge. I think that's probably one of the topics that we're not talking about as much, and maybe we'll end up talking about it more, but it might, if it ends up being a bigger topic, it's because something happened there.
Mm-hmm. You know what else? Who I think's got some pressure on him? Reese, is it Dakin? Dakin, I think.
Dakin, yeah. Biggest shoes to fill.
It's unbelievable.
Season preview, and I said he's got the biggest shoes to fill on the team.
I
literally
agree, because this was a team that was spoiled. Where the opponent would start at their own 5 or at their 2, seemingly 2 or 3 possessions every game. We remember, the fun that the national media had, punting is winning, etc. But it was, and they had such a weapon. There's pressure on Dakin. There really and truly is.
He's got to be good.
Yes,
he's got to be. He doesn't have to be Torrey Taylor, but he's got to be good. He's got to. I don't expect him to be a Ray Guy level award-winning punter, but he's got to still be around 45, and he's got to put the ball inside the 20. And if he can do that, then no real significant drop off. But I think everybody just forgets what a weapon Torrey Taylor has been. The course of his career at Iowa and how that grew. I mean, he was a weapon. He was a game-changing player as a punter. We joke about punting as winning, but
it's true.
It really was.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
Did get a chance to talk to you as I was off last week, Tom, but not sure if you touched on recruiting much. Lucas Allgaier, the big offensive line commitment that they got, has bloodlines, has family connections to the University of Iowa, but that St. Louis pipeline has been so fruitful for Iowa. Adrian Claiborne, Marvin McNutt, and there's been plenty of others too. Keeping that open with Missouri, what they're doing in the SEC and becoming SEC territory, that feels like it's super important for Iowa to maintain this level, is keeping St. Louis open.
Yeah. I'd mentioned like Christian Kirksey back in the day too, was another, big gift for them out of the St. Louis area. So they've had some success down there, and they've got to keep that going. And really, maybe the biggest remaining name for Iowa is kind of sort of a St. Louis area kid with Jose Epinesa, who's from Edwardsville, Illinois, which is, you just skip a rock across the Mississippi River and you're in Edwardsville. So Good luck skipping it these days with the flood.
I was going to say, yeah.
We got a little bit of a flood problem here in Davenport these days, by the way.
Yeah.
So, but they've got to keep that open. And, by the way, it seems like Jose might be getting closer to a decision. And it's Iowa. Miami's been pretty consistent in that top 2 or 3. And Utah seems to have elevated themselves from what I've been told. So, and Mizzou might be, 4th, 5th.
I thought Mizzou
4th, 5th.
I thought Mizzou would be the team that I would have to beat.
Well, in Missouri, if he was on the other side of the river, they'd be able to start helping him out NIL-wise a little bit earlier, right, with the way that state law was written. Have you heard anything? I know you're in the NIL space a lot. Have you heard anything state legislation-wise here in the state of Iowa that could be on the books?
Have not heard anything. So, it's just...
You're on to something, Trent.
Interesting.
Need to talk to Nate Bolton, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Somebody who wants to
get their name in the paper.
Somebody who wants to earn some votes in an election year. Here you go.
That's you know what?
Get the votes of Hawkeye and Cyclone fans right there. Easy.
Campaign manager Trent Condon right over here.
You're 100% right.
My DMs are open.
Yeah. Oh, good stuff. Tom Kakert, HawkeyeReport.com. So, Tom, how long are you going to stay at the golf? It's a one-day deal for you?
I'll be out here a couple times this week, but just out today. I'm going to do a story on Keegan because he's headed out to Las Vegas on Friday for he's going to be training with the USA basketball, with the U.S. Olympic team.
Is he
part of the select? It's a USA select team. There's about 15 guys, and Keegan did it last year, and Grant Hill invited him back this year again. So he's going to be out there for 3 days training with the USA Olympic team. So that's just his hope, is that, maybe the next time they have the FIBA World Championships, he could be on that team, because a lot of guys don't want to plan that after a long NBA season. And then, does well in that, you're like a Tyrese Halliburton or a Anthony Edwards who get called up to the big club for the Los Angeles Olympics in 2028. So he's trying to keep his name in the mix for that. So I think it's a pretty cool opportunity.
That's brilliant.
For Keegan.
Yeah, developmental is huge for him, just to be practicing against the world's best. It's a really good idea. I did not know that. Glad for you sharing that.
Hey, a little basketball to wrap things up. It looks like Iowa's non-conference schedule is set for next season, and as you'd anticipate, the bye games, much like their brethren at Iowa State, are some yuck. Southern, Texas A&M, Commerce, South Dakota, Rider,
New Hampshire,
USC, Upstate, that's South Carolina, Upstate, New Orleans. I don't think that Irvin Johnson's going to be walking through that door. The one interesting one, though, as you're in the Quad Cities, from the Quad Cities, live in the Quad Cities, is Washington State, no longer a power conference team, making their way to Moline to take on the Hawkeyes. I know your connections there, there's no date that's been announced yet, but kind of what can you tell us about that one? They're also playing in Kansas City. They're also playing in Sioux Falls in a one-off event.
What's the event? Is it the Mark? Is that what?
The Mark and Moline?
The old Mark. Yeah, it's the old Mark and Moline, and it makes sense with Owen Freeman and especially Brock Harding growing up in Moline. So it makes a lot of sense. I was told it's going to be November 15th. It's a Friday, and Iowa football team's on a bye week that week. So it kind of makes some sense that they would do that. Might attract a pretty decent crowd, I think. We'll see with that. But, look, guys, that's what's going to happen with college basketball now. Because of the way that the Big 12 figured it out last year, how to do well with the new the net is just play these garbage teams and just destroy them, and then play a couple of one-off games and do that, and you can get a really good net ranking, and then you take care of your conference stuff, and you're in the tournament.
The Big 12 didn't figure that out. Fran McCaffrey figured that out. He's been doing that for the last 4 years. And Tom, we used to go back and forth about Fran's scheduling in the old RPI days, and I completely changed my opinion when we went to the net, because Fran had that figured out. You play those awful, the worst of the worst, and you beat them by 50. It's going to help you out. Though the spread is only capped at 10, your efficiency numbers are not capped. And Fran's been doing that for years. And you can look at a couple of those bubble teams that got in here over the last 4 or 5 years. In the old system, they wouldn't have been close in the RPI. Fran's had this figured out for a while, I think.
Yeah, it's there's a way to game the system, and until they fix it,
right?
And I don't know that they're going
I don't think they are,
because it's just I think they like it the way it is, and I think the thing they're going to have to fix, and I saw they're not going to fix it, is the MTEs, the multi-team events are. How are you going to fill those when you don't have enough conferences to fill teams? These days, and they just said, yeah, we're not going to let two teams in the same conference play in those. So, what's going to happen in Maui? Are all these going to be like the thing that's going to go on in Vegas, where they're going to give every team $1 million and distribute it? I mean, I think that's what the MTEs are going to be, but I got to see. I want to see how they're going to make money on those MTEs.
Trent said the same thing this morning.
Great minds think alike, Tom Kakert.
We shall see. I hope
nobody does that. Nobody does that for charity. Let's just say that.
Yeah. No, that's a good point. Tom Kakert, enjoy the 4th, Tom. Thanks for coming on here today. We'll catch you next Friday, Tom Kakert. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, guys.
Yep. See you, buddy. Tom Kakert, Hawkeye Report.
Gametime is an authorized ticket marketplace for Major League Baseball, which makes getting tickets faster and easier. Prices on the Gametime app actually go down the closer it gets to first pitch. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their lowest price guarantee, Gametime takes the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets. I love so many components of the Gametime app. Flash deals. Save even more with exclusive in-app deals on select seats ahead of the game or the event. And the all-in pricing, knowing exactly what your price is going to be. No more surprise fees at checkout. The all-in pricing, when you toggle that feature, it shows you the total up front. Take the guesswork out of buying MLB tickets with Gametime. Just download the Gametime app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege. That'll get you $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONCollege, LOCKEDONCOLLEGE for $20 off. Download Gametime today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed. Trent Condon back with you one final time here on the Locked On Hawkeyes podcast. As always, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. So open up the FanDuel Sportsbook here this morning, and as I did, I was perusing around college football a little bit. Now, the reason that I went there, and I've already got some bets in the FanDuel app, was because, well, I saw a big bet that came in last week. I'm sure many of you saw this on social media, but there was a bettor out there at another sports book that put up the Iowa Hawkeyes, not to make the college football playoff. We've talked about that in the past. No, to win the whole enchilada. This bettor bet $790. At 400 to 1, they would net $316,000 if the Iowa Hawkeyes have the crystal football and are your national champion. We talked a lot about Iowa's ability to make the college football playoff this year. I don't think it's a stretch to say that that is a realistic possibility of them getting in there. 10-2, maybe even 11-1. They're in the college football playoff, and away we go. That is not a stretch. However, to do that, to actually win the national championship, that one seems just a little bit off on that front. Now, I mentioned the odds to make the college football playoff, and there is the Iowa Hawkeyes currently at FanDuel. They are plus 650 to make the college football playoff. That means if you bet $10, you win $65. You return $75 along with your initial $10 bet. $75 would be going into your account. Add an extra zero, add a couple extra zeros, whatever is your flavor. That's the way the odds work on that front. There's also been some numbers out there for game of the year. Iowa State. This is a big one, obviously. Week 2, as the Hawkeyes play host to Iowa State. And I've been really surprised by this number. It's under a field goal. Iowa's favored, but by 2.5. Now, do we think it's going to be a close game? No doubt. I think this is going to be a nip and tuck game. Both teams return 19 starters from a year ago. Iowa State returns the most production in college football across the board, all 132 teams. Iowa State has the most production coming back. It's going to be a big environment, though. And this is going to be certainly bigger than what they're used to in the Big 12, short of going to Texas or Oklahoma, making their way to Kinnick Stadium. They've had some success there, but this is also what it tells you. And this is why it's so surprising to me. I think Iowa's a touch better than Iowa State this year. I don't think it's a huge gap between the two, but I think Iowa is a little bit better with the defense coupled with what they're going to have, I think, improvement offensively. But if you subscribe to the old adage that home field advantage is worth 3, well, that would tell you that Iowa State is a favorite on a neutral field. But here's the other thing. Kinnick Stadium is not a 3-point stadium. Kinnick Stadium is a 5.5 point home field advantage. So this is to say, we put this thing in Marshalltown. I don't know, somewhere in the middle. Put it in State Center, neutral field in between the two. We split it down the middle. It's a neutral field environment that Iowa State would be a 2.5 point favorite, maybe a 3-point favorite on a neutral field. I can't wrap my mind around that one. That one is a difficult one to certainly, as you're perusing through it and taking a look at things, I just cannot get there. Coming up next week here, Locked On Hawkeyes, I will be in Las Vegas. Speaking of Iowa State, I'll be there for Big 12 Football Media Day, but I'll have plenty of Hawkeye content coming your way. We'll be set up at Circa, the biggest sports book in the world. We'll bring you some podcasts from out there, talk to some movers and shakers in the world of college football. We'll have that for you coming your way, and hopefully a couple of interviews with a few national voices while we're out in Las Vegas as we talk about that. We're going to talk a little bit more. I've dug up some numbers about what we talked about a little bit earlier today, the college football playoff and what it would look like and what Iowa would have done. And I just can't get past that. Iowa is in the worst shape of anybody in the new look Big Ten from Stewart Mandel from The Athletic. But we got plenty coming your way as we count down to the football season. So excited for that. As always, thanks for making Locked On Hawkeyes your first listen every day. Also want to let you know, Locked On has launched the first ever national sports 24/7 streaming channel on YouTube. And now it's also available on Amazon Fire TV in their free Fire TV channels app. Locked On Sports Today is here for you 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On, plus our national shows covering every league. Find Locked On Sports Today now available on the free Fire TV channels app. Hope you have a great weekend. We'll talk to you again on Monday. Until then, go Hawks.